Welcome back. So we were talking about the changes that went on at the Manchester Evening News when I was in charge of the digital convergence project, and I wanted to move on and talk a little bit about how the rest of the industry was changing, how this signified a changing industry, which has led to the situation we have today. We just pushed myself into the corner again, and we got to this point. So we'd seen how at the Manchester Evening News we'd had a project where we'd identified the need to concentrate on function, not format, so looking at function of content rather than the format in which it was published. And we talked about telling the best stories in the best way and at the best time possible. So that led to a change in the way that we had organised our newsroom, the way that just the physical layout, the way that we organised the staff, the roles that we had, and the way that we talked to one another, the lines of communication, whole new ways of having conference. We'd have a live section at the beginning for breaking news, which we could make sure we were getting that out in the fastest way possible. So fast ways like radio and web, and then we'd have what we'd call a futures section where we would be looking at the slower sort of media. How do we plan ahead to make sure those media work well? So with TV, slightly slower, and then of course in last place is print. How do we still make that a compelling product, because we still make an awful lot of money out of it, so we can't just abandon it. In fact, at that point, still over 90% of revenues was coming in through print. That's significantly lower now, but you couldn't just cut the cord on print, because then you would destroy the business. So elsewhere in the business, so as I mentioned, that we at the Manchester Evening News were part of the Guardian Media Group. That was sold to Trinity Mirror, so the owners of the Mirror newspaper. As part of a consolidation, there were a whole series of mergers going on. The Guardian wanted to focus entirely on its national publications and its online publications, and it decided that the Manchester Evening News was no longer sufficiently profitable to justify it being part of the group. When it was generating 30+% profit margins, that's what paid for the Guardian. That's how the Guardian could afford to lose £1 million a week, which is what it was doing, and it still makes quite fairly hefty, or has been making some fairly hefty losses. So the Manchester Evening News basically propped up the Guardian for years and years. However, as it became less profitable, the Guardian sought to offload it, and offloaded it on Trinity Mirror, and that led to a series of other mergers that were going on. So we have Trinity Mirror moved into regional publishing. We had the rise of Local World. And that was part, originally it was what was called Northcliffe, which was a regional publisher, which was part of the Daily Mail group. So when I left the Manchester Evening News, I became the editor of a newspaper with Northcliffe, the Plymouth Herald, and that was then bought out by Local World. So that became a large regional newspaper and digital group. And bizarrely, Local World then merged or was bought out by Trinity Mirror, so they merged together. So all of those titles started coming together, and you ended up also with the Daily Express being bought up by the resulting company as well, which was called Reach, and it is called Reach. The point is, there's a massive consolidation has been going on within the industry. So from having a much more fragmented industry, we now have Reach, which is a huge publishing group, which has not only Daily Mirror, Daily Express, and the Star, the Daily Star, so big national titles. It also has all of the old Local World titles, which have been brought in from the old Daily Mail General Trust, and it also has the old Trinity Mirror titles, the big titles like the Manchester Evening News, Liverpool Echo, etc. You don't have to remember all the particular detail, but you do need to know that Reach is a consolidation, is a conglomerate of all of these publishing titles. And the reason that it's significant is really spelled out by its name. It's all about Reach PLC. And everyone took the mickey when it first announced its name, but it's actually very Apposite, it's the whole purpose of that group. So it has newspapers of conflicting political views. It has the Express and the Mirror, both in its stable. It has regional papers right around the country, but that gives it a huge amount of reach to an audience. It creates a very, very large audience to which it can, of course, sell advertising. So if you put all these pieces together, it starts to make a very powerful media group. And that's been the way that media companies have sought to rebuild their business model. They couldn't just make enough money off a single news title. They were starting to consolidate to create a new model. And this, I had this from Paul Gallagher, who I mentioned a little bit earlier on. We saw in the picture, working at the news desk. I used to work with Paul, and just to show where reach comes when you look at total digital population. When you add all of Reach's audience together, it has a greater UK online population than eBay, or within the UK, bigger than the Mail Online, or bigger than Apple, or any of these. So, and you see it's significantly larger in the UK, and I stress in the UK, than the Guardian. If you put all of its titles together, the audiences for all of its titles together. So that's a very powerful digital tool. You can go out to advertisers and say, look, we can reach more people than the Guardian, we can reach more people than eBay. So would you like to advertise? That becomes powerful. So you do have to understand it in that broad context. I wanted to talk a little bit about different perspectives as well on the way that we approach digital. Again, some of these are pretty self-apparent now, but I just wanted to really highlight them so you've got a clearer view of the way the industry is structured. You don't need to know these numbers, but this is just looking at the UK, just to underline that point about print decline. So if you look at some of the really big publishers, we're now down at 1.2 million circulation. But look at that column over on the right there. Hopefully you can see I'm highlighting there, minus 11%. So it's year on year, it's continuing to decline. These are 2020 figures. But when we if we look at audience reach, we can suddenly see that the sheer scale of the reach of some of these, and also how it reorders. If you look at the Sun, we're looking at a reach of 30 million. So only 1.2 million in print, but it's saying it's got a reach of 30 million. So it's using digital tools in order to reach that audience. So just be aware that it's not just Reach PLC, which see the value of Reach small r. It's all media groups. They're all now structuring themselves around generating huge audiences, where they can reap very small returns from each particular reader, but you add all of those up and you get a decent return off that very large audience. So various ways of structuring it. So open access is the one which we're all used to. Daily Mail is the classic example. So if you take their global audience, they're the biggest English language news publisher in the world now, and you'll know their website, Mail Online. It's significantly different to the Daily Mail newspaper because they're targeting an international audience, particularly America, but also Australia, so English-speaking parts of the world, and they generate, they've invested millions and millions in creating this huge audience, the largest English language news audience in the world. And they're starting to reap some rewards off that. It has been very much a cost base for a long time, but they are now reaping the rewards of having this huge audience, so they can transfer their advertising revenues from print base over to a digital base. So that's helping sustain their business into the future. The Guardian's interesting. We all know that we can all just log on to the Guardian and look at it, but you'll also know that every time you try and read it, it's asking you to contribute. So it's not a paywall as such, but it's asking you to contribute. So that's a very It's a bit of a subtle difference to the Mail, which is just relying entirely on advertising revenue for its digital revenues. The Guardian saying, okay, we'll rely on advertising, but also we would like to develop this relationship with you. So I noticed today when I logged on, they not only are they saying, please become a member, become part of our community by voluntarily contributing, but they're also saying, we would like you to register. You don't have to at the moment, but that'll shift, I think. So they're saying register for free, or you can opt out of that, but I think pretty soon you'll only be able to read their content if you do register. So there's no money changing hands, but there's information. Why is it important? For the reasons I said earlier on, because if you know your audience, you know what age they are, what economic group they're in, which area of the country, what gender they are. All of these things tell you are enormously useful to an advertiser. So whilst you might not pay with money, you'll pay with information, and that which is very much the model of Facebook. All of those lovely things that Facebook offer you are paid for dearly with your own information, even if you get the feeling that it is free. It's not free. You're giving them information in return, and that's incredibly valuable to them. Of course, then we got hard paywalls. Now, generally, that's only worked effectively for more niche publications, but some mainstream publishers do it. The Telegraph, you have to subscribe to the Telegraph. The FT as well create soft paywalls, so they will meter the amount of content that you can access before you have to pay and subscribe to those titles. The Wall Street Journal in particular has been a proponent of hard paywalls, and the reason is it comes down to the owner. So Rupert Murdoch, it's long been a proponent of hard paywalls. Doesn't see why he should give his news away for free. So a lot of his titles have long stay behind paywalls, including The Sun for a long time, but a few years ago came out from behind a paywall because circulation was absolutely vanishing, and they've now accepted the need for open access for certain publications. And just finally, I just want to really stress this. We're talking about online, but really what we're really thinking about is mobile. Mobile, as you know, I bet the last time you looked at a story, the next time you look at a story will be mobile. A lot less dwell time on mobile, so you need to think about the way the content works. But here's some figures. Again, don't worry too much about the detail, but this is looking at the reach of any particular brand. So let's have a look at the Sun at the top of the list there. So if you have a 31 million reach shown there, 2/3 of that was through mobile. So if you need to have mobile working, desktop, print, tablets, whatever, all fine, but it's on mobile phones that it really matters. And this finishes off with a quote. Paul Gallagher, I mentioned him before, head of digital innovation at Reach PLC. It's what he says to all of his reporters, all of his web developers, all of his teams, is if it doesn't work on mobile, it doesn't work. So think about that when you're publishing a story. Do the pictures work? Do the videos work? Does the text work in a mobile format? Have you got the text the right size? Are the graphics legible on a mobile device? If it doesn't work on mobile, it doesn't work. Okay, so that's pretty much it from me. Hopefully that was useful. Feel free to get in touch with me if you want. Sorry I couldn't be in the same room as you to talk to you about this. So my email address is i.wood@salford.ac.uk, or you may just see me around the building. So feel free to grab me in a socially distanced way. But other than that, thanks for your attention, and I hope this was useful.